Hey, Pete Winarski here, founder, CEO of Win Enterprises LLC. We are all about helping you to transform yourself, your team, and your company, and you're just getting much greater results, business results, the happiness that you have for yourself, that your family then feels. That's what we're after here, right? How to make a much better experience for yourself and your team, getting the business results that you want. And especially thinking about large companies, small companies, and large company. The challenges there are maybe more execution related. The challenges for a small business maybe are execution, but also might be, man, I just got to get some revenue in here, man. I got to get customers buying. I've got to get more clients lined up, whatever the case may be. That's the world that you're probably playing in if you are the small business owner. And what I want to talk about today is about how you're perceived and the fact that it does matter. In fact, it matters quite a bit. Before we get there, let me just remind you, more revenue, more profit, right? Who doesn't want both of those? More revenue equals easier because customers are there, cash is flowing in. More profit because you've got your operations under control. You've got your infrastructure in place. You've got your costs managed relative to your revenue. And so you've got more profit, which leads to cash flow, which gives you the ability to have oxygen, right? Think of, can't breathe, I don't have enough oxygen. That's cash in your business. Like the more cash you have, the more cash flowing in. It's like, hey, I can breathe freely. I can run a marathon right now. No problem. I can breathe just fine. So, that metaphor is often, you think about cash flow matters tremendously, because if you ain't got no cash flow, it's like you don't have any oxygen. You stop breathing, and then of course nothing good happens if you can't breathe, right? Or if your oxygen supply is low and you're gasping for breath, all you're thinking about is how do I not die, right? So we don't want that for your business. We want your business to be thinking, how do I thrive? How do I go to the next level? How do I invest in new services, new products, new ways to get out there to my target customer, my client? So more revenue, more profit is what the name of the game is for you, especially as a small business leader. You've got to get both really, really working on your behalf, which is why we're in the More Revenue, More Profit Facebook group. So if you're not part of that yet, get over here, buddy. Come join More Revenue, More Profit Facebook group. You can search it, or you can just go to facebook.com/groups/more revenue, more profit. Get involved there, right? See what's going on. This particular Facebook Live is broadcasting there. We're also broadcasting this on our Pete Winarski page and our YouTube channel, all three of those. And of course, we're going and turning it into a podcast on Business Results Radio. So those are all different venues that this particular one is being broadcast, but some of these are only broadcast exclusively to the folks in More Revenue, More Profit, because we really want to help you to excel and take off. And that's what's super exciting. So let's get you there. And one of the things that we want to talk about today is, of course, how are you perceived? And the fact is, you have a choice on how you want to be perceived, right? So think of it as what kind of language you use. How do you present yourself? How are you dressed? What's your background? Look at my setup here, right? I'm broadcasting to you today from the studio in my home. I'm seated. I'm comfortable. We just had a part of our program, our More Revenue, More Profit Business Acceleration Program, the year-long program that people enroll in. And so I was here in this exact spot. We just finished up, in fact, maybe 20 minutes before I jumped on here with you, right? So I'm already set up. I'm in the studio. The lighting's right. Things are working out relatively easy for me to just stay here. And look at how this is perceived. Professional mic. I'll just hold it up so you can see it. I've got the mic for the sound quality, decent camera, all of this, right here, so that it gives you the experience I want, not of someone who's just like, winging it and fly by night, but someone who's got it put together, right? That's perception. That's one of the things I want. Now, I have done lives. I've grabbed my mobile phone. I've been in the car, pull over on the side of the road, and I've done it that way, and that works too. It's just question: how do you want to be perceived? And so sometimes walking around, even down the sidewalk, and saying, "Hey, I just got out of a meeting." Let me hold it this way so it looks like I'm holding the phone. "Hey, I just got out of a meeting and I had this really important aha moment, and I want to share it with you right here, right now." And then go on and share it, right? How is that perceived? That's perceived as, wow, thank you for real time information, right? That's a deliberate choice. You could choose to do that. Um, you know, how are you dressed? That's a perception moment. It's interesting. I think back to Robert Kiyosaki, and when I read the Rich Dad series of books years ago. This is probably, oh goodness, I don't know, when would this have been? Probably around 1998, 2000, somewhere in that range. I started getting into real estate investing and doing some stuff with Robert Kiyosaki's principles. I loved reading his books, and he would brag about how he would walk into a bank in sandals, a pair of sandals and a pair of shorts. And at first they're like, "Who is this guy?" And then he opens up his financials and they're like, "Oh, we'll give you anything you want." Right? You want a loan? You want money? Because you're clearly very successful and you're going to turn it into something productive. And so deliberate choice, right? He wanted to be perceived as, I'm so successful that I don't have to dress up in a suit. Now, of course, I've seen Robert Kiyosaki live where he presented on stage. And when he did that, he was in a suit. He was like, man, he looked good, sharp dressed man. How do you want to be perceived? He made a deliberate choice about walking into the bank, declaring, I've achieved financial freedom. I can wear sandals and shorts to this meeting, to this request for money because my results speak for themselves. That's a choice he made. Then when he's on stage, the suit and tie. That's a choice he made. How do you want to be perceived? Now, it's interesting. Joel Bauer, who was one of my mentors, Joel's very clear about asking that question and pointing out for you to dress how you want to be perceived. And he is a very deliberate thinker on this. So Joel, when he's on stage doing presentations, ending up, for keynotes and workshops and things that end up with an audience full of people who are all there to learn from him, he's dressed in a suit, right? Suit and tie. In fact, he even has the science behind the color combinations nailed down, and he teaches that. So again, how do you want to be perceived? Now, of course, as an internet marketer, which of course today here we are with the pandemic kind of changing up the world, right? Changing how we interact with people. You're not putting 1,000 people in a room in a hotel, to have a full day workshop, at least not in the immediate time frame. So you're just not packing a room the way that you used to pack a room. So you do it via the internet. Here I am coming to you right now via the internet, and I'm dressed a little bit more relaxed. This blue shirt, the relaxation, but the environment is still right. The lighting is still right. As much as I'm maybe dressed down a little bit, I'm not in a suit and tie, right? I'm not in that at all, but I am professionally lit, professionally perceived. So how do you want to be perceived? And then what can you do to go out of your way to make sure that that is how your customers, your community, et cetera, how people perceive you? Now, by the way, think of who is out there: your potential customers and clients, your community, your employees, right? How do you want to be perceived? So I've got a client who was just describing to us that the CEO just changed over. So this guy's a COO. The chairman of the board brought in a new CEO. The new CEO is on board, and he keeps setting up meetings and then blowing them off. It's like, hey, sorry about this. Something came up. Can we reschedule for tomorrow? Can we reschedule again? Or shows up late or whatever. So question: how do you want to be perceived? First of all, that's an even bigger culture question for your company, right? How do you want the culture to be in terms of personal responsibility, in terms of people keeping their word, in terms of everybody's time is important? Those types of elements, that stuff matters too. Well, so what is it that you're doing to reemphasize that? How are you being perceived, right? How are you re-emphasizing the culture traits, the characteristics of the culture you want in your business? And how do you behave according to that? How do you want to be perceived? It's interesting because one of my highest core values is integrity. So integrity is that you behave in a way that you would behave this way consistent, whether somebody was watching or not, right? That's one of the elements. Yeah, it matters. It matters how you show up. That you're truthful and trustworthy. Truthful, trustful, trustworthy. I may have invented a word, I'm not sure, but you're trustworthy, and people take you on your word. How do you want to be perceived, right? Your language matters, right? So all of that all factors in. So who do you care about? Your employees, your customers, your family, your community, the people you interact with out there in the world. When they see you, including on social media, including what you type into a post on Facebook or Twitter or Instagram, right? How do you want to be perceived? Now, that's an interesting one because a lot of people, there's like this barrier on social media where they almost feel a license that they can do and say whatever they want, no matter how brash or hurtful. And like if you were there in person, they might not say it that way, right? I mean, you may have noticed that sort of thing. Like, that's odd. That was pretty aggressive language. And then when you talk to the person in person, they're not an aggressive person at all. So like, how do you want to be perceived? How do you want to be perceived when you post on social media, right? So, if you're coming across LinkedIn or Twitter or Facebook as an angry person, is that by choice? I'm not telling you not to do it. I'm asking you to consider, how do you want to be perceived? Because you can control the variables around you. And that's what's really important here. So the same is true for your company. How do you want your company to be perceived? What's the language that you're using on your communications, your websites, on something like this, right? I'm doing a Facebook Live right now that will turn into a podcast and also be live on YouTube. So, here's a YouTube video that I'm creating right now that I want to have consistent from a brand standpoint. I'm not talking about just a logo. I mean, I actually, I don't know if you can see it, stand up. I got my Win Enterprises logo shirt on today. You can't really see the logo because it's the way I'm sat. It's below the box. Your brand is more than a logo. It's how you show up. It's consistency. How do you want to be perceived? Right. So that's part of this too. Your website, your emails that you send out. How do you want to be perceived? So deliberate question for you to ask, which then creates choices so that you can make deliberate choices to that question that then enable you to be perceived the way you want based on you controlling some of the variables that you have within your control. So if it's important for you to relax and have fun, you can put a smile on your face. I'm having fun right now. I'm pretty relaxed, and I'm doing it in a professional environment because being professional is one of the things I want to be perceived as. So here I am with professional lighting, professional backdrop, professional camera, professional mic, and it's working for what I'm creating by design right now. I elected to wear this shirt. I elected to have this background. I'm electing the words that I'm using in this conversation, and it's by design. So you choosing to live your life by design, again, borrowing from my mentor, Joel Bauer, you choosing to design how you come across in your presentations, in your interactions, in everything you do. So have that in mind. Fired up Figure out, how do you want to be perceived? Make the choices, make the edits along the way, and just show up consistently to how you want to be perceived. And things will start to fall into place relative to people perceiving you that way. All right, think about that. I love this exercise. This is something that I think it will be an important one for us to bring in. Now, David, I know you're listening to me. We got to bring this into our more revenue, more profit business acceleration program, because this is really an important topic, right? For our clients. But nonetheless, you get it here because you're here. You're here watching this idea of how you want to be perceived. You just got a couple minutes of free thought around that topic today. Looking forward to seeing you again in 2 days. We'll catch you on Wednesday. Take care.